Alright, well, what we're going to do is a little test fitting this morning to make sure that all the parts I bought are the right ones before I do the final install. So what we're going to do is put the brake rotor on, we're going to put the wheel spacers on, put the caliper on. I did not mention in yesterday's video about the braided brake lines, but it's in the parts list if you need or want to upgrade to braided. I upgraded my car upgraded my car to braided lines last year. I had a video on when I did the brakes, so I'm just reusing those. They're only a little bit about a year old, so we're not going to be too concerned about it. I still have the old caliper still just laying right there. I don't want to drain that until I have to. So first thing we're going to do is get the rotor, the back spacer. We're going to get the spacer between the rotor on. Then we'll put the rotor on, then we'll put the wheel spacer on, and then we'll put the brake caliper on just to kind of hold things. So these are hub centric. Basically the center of these are pretty close to the outside of that way they stay in place, they don't move around. That's what you want. Don't buy the non-hub centric because then they'll float. If you don't get them tight, then you could also throw off your alignment or your balance, not alignment. Oh God, I'm still tired. So let me get started and we'll test fit everything real good, and then I will explain some modifications I'm doing as I go. This way, depending on how you're going to do your install, you may want to think things over as you're going. Okay, so the first thing I've noticed is that my hub centric wheel spacers don't sit all the way back, so I'm going to have to modify them just a little bit, it seems. But these are 3mm hub spacers. If you were doing the other install, you would machine the brake caliper resting spot 3.5, and that'll give you a more centered brake pad to rotor. This will be off just a little bit, but not too worried about it. But these were the ones that they called for. It is a very snug fit. I'm gonna just kind of take a little bit of sandpaper and run around the inside just enough to make it fit in there a little bit better. It'll fit nice and tight. So what I have is some wet dry 400. I'm just going around a few times and then test fitting it, and then so it's already moved quite a bit. I've done it about 3 times, so probably about 2 or 3 minutes worth of work so far. But I don't want to force it on because I don't want to crack it. So once I get it, see, it's got this step right here in the back. It might be hard to see. There's a step right here, and it just seems to be hanging up just a little bit. So we're just going to take it down a little bit each time until it fits. This is why we test fit everything, to make sure it does, because you don't want to slam it together, break something, and then you're waiting for parts again. I still have not tightened down the CV nut. Until it's sitting on the ground, it's going to be a little difficult. So I figure I'll do that, and then once it's back on the ground, I'll adjust the alignment as well. Alright, so we've hit a little snag. So I sanded on that until it sort of fit. It was really snug still, but I thought I had enough clearance. Went ahead and started to put the brake rotor on. It might be hard to tell. Let's see if I can get a better angle, but it is deformed. So if you can see, this one is really pushed out of shape, and in the process it cracked. There's one, that's 2, and there's 3, and this one and this one are cracked. So 5 of them cracked. So I didn't try this one. I didn't even bother trying to clean up the edge so it fit better. But yeah, you can definitely tell. So this is why we're test fitting today, making sure all of those parts fit. So I'm going to go ahead and test fit the rest of the parts without this. It won't matter. I'm not going to put on the brake pad, so I just want to make sure the rotor and everything has clearance. So this part will be being sent back, and I will be getting a different one, better one, I hope. So we will see. All right, so my wheel spacer, the 2.5, whatever it is, that goes on there fairly well, even without the wheel spacer behind it. So, but we're going to go ahead and try the test fit the rotor, make sure everything is good there, and then we'll put the caliper on and just test fit it all. All right, so I'm just going ahead and test fit without the wheel spacer behind the rotor. It's going to make the caliper and rotor off, but I want to make sure everything sort of is close, to make sure I don't have anything else to take back. So rotor's on, wheel spacer's on. Now move my wheel out and give me some more clearance. I am running a stock 18-inch wheel, and this should be the correct spacer, but I'm just going to verify that. Right now the studs of the hub stick out past the edge of the wheel spacer just a little bit, but if we put the spacer over the top of those, it's now behind it, so that should not make any contact with your wheel, and that should work just fine. So get that stupid thing back out there. Okay, so next I'm going to set the rotor up here, and see what type of clearance we have with it. Okay, so I just have the 2 bolts in the caliper sort of loose, so that moves around a little bit. The rotor is just sitting on here without the spacer behind it. I am seeing a little bit of clearance issue right there, but you can see it is sort of centered up. So yeah, 3 mils is kind of a bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of finish playing with it. So a modification I do have to do to the brake caliper itself is I need to switch this crossover line from the top down to the bottom, and then put the bleeder screws at the top. I would almost say that instead of just doing that, just swapping the 2 rotors or 2 calipers, putting the passenger side on the driver's side, and putting so you don't have to do any of that. You should be able to do that. I might test fit that just to see if that will work, because I mean basically it's the same process. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna go grab the other caliper. All right, so I was gonna mount the passenger side on the driver's side just to see how fitment, if it made any difference on the fitment. And the one thing I noticed is where your brake line goes into the rotor would be on the bottom, and if you swap sides, and on the top if you leave it normal. So you will need to change those out, but I had tightened the rotor back up so that it was actually tight sitting against the backing plate, and without the spacer you cannot get the rotor on at all. It is just way too tight. So you definitely need to have that spacer back there. I'm gonna go ahead and take this all back apart, put all my parts back in the boxes, and hang on to them until my new back spacers come in. So that's just going to end this video. And then I guess when the parts come in, we'll test fit again and make sure everything else works. But it seems like that's the only thing that's keeping me from moving forward right now, is those little spacers.